سلام على الدنيا إذا لم يكن بها صديق صدوق صادق الوعد منصفا، ولا خير في خل يخون خليله ويلقه من بعد المودة بالجفا، وينكر عيشا قد تقادم عهده ويظهر سرا كان بالأمس قد خفا.
What is the ruling on a Muslim befriending a kafir or a fasiq or a mubtada? Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. This is such an important topic and it's very essential. And what comes to mind pertaining to its importance is that it's among the discussions of the people in Jannah. It's a matter that could be means for one's ultimate success or his ultimate failure. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the delight of the people in Jannah, Surah As-Safat, their happiness and what they eat and drink, their spouses and gatherings, Allah gives a snippet of one of their discussions. And He says, قال قائل منهم إني كان لي قرين يقول وإنك لمن المصدقين. One of them, sitting in Jannah, is discussing with his friends in Jannah. They had a companion in the dunya. يقول وإنك لمن المصدقين أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أإنا لمدينون. This friend that he had in the dunya would always try to put doubts in his mind by asking him, do you really believe? Do you really believe that when we die and we become bones and dust, that we're really going to come back to life and that we're going to be punished? قال هل أنتم مطلعون. Go look for him. Where is he? فاطلع فرآه في سواء الجحيم. They looked, they found him in Jahim. قال تالله إن كدت لتردين ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين. He says, by Allah, he gives an oath. By Allah, he nearly ruined me. He nearly ruined what? The delight that he was now enjoying in Jannah. Isn't that the means that deprived Abu Talib from eternal happiness? When the Messenger ﷺ kept telling him, just say that word, just say that sentence, and I will witness for you before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he had his friends around him, Abu Jahl and Abdullah ibn Abi Umayyah, and they're telling him, Ya Aba Talib, atarghabu an millati Abdul Muttalib? Abu Talib, are you going to denounce the religion of Abdul Muttalib? And they kept repeating it until he lost his eternal happiness. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah sums up the ruling on this matter in a one-liner. He said, فَالْمُصَاحَبَةُ وَالْمُؤَاخَاةُ لا تكون إلا مع أهل طاعة الله على مراد الله. That sums up the ruling on this matter. Befriending and brotherhood are not permissible except with the people of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only in accordance to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. And let me give 3 quick points on this matter. It's not permissible by ijma' to befriend a fasiq or mubtada or kafir for their fisq or kufr or for their bid'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Second of all, it's not permissible to befriend those categories that were mentioned in the question while they're doing any of that bid'ah or any of their kufr or any of their sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ. The third point, one may befriend them with the intention of da'wah or doing the inkar of the munkar on them. And that's only if that person is knowledgeable and while he sees improvement, and not when they're doing any of their kufr or bid'ah or fisq. He has to be knowledgeable with strong iman, because the people of sins, and in particular the people of bid'ah, they may instill doubts and corrupt one's iman. One, for example, may go face off with a mubtada, thinking he's strong in this issue. He may be. but he may be weak in some of the sciences of Islam. For example, he may be weak in the Arabic language or in usul al-fiqh, and they may instill a doubt in him through those sciences. Look at Imran ibn Hittan. He transmitted a hadith from some of the Sahaba like Aisha, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhum, and some of the Tabi'een, but he was among the leaders of the Khawarij during his time, and he didn't start off like that. He actually started off on the righteous path. He married a Kharijiyya, a woman from the Khawarij, thinking he can win her over. When the opposite happened, she won him over. When one feels or sees that it's most likely that his inkar of the munkar is not helping, and that his inkar of the munkar is not beneficial, then that is a point where one should abandon the friendship. Some of the Maliki and Shafi'iyya said sitting with the Fasiq, inasan lahum, meaning to keep them company, is a sin. And I don't believe they were meaning that it was in the context of while they were committing sins, but in general settings. Distancing oneself is not just to be safe from them, but it's also a form of reprimand. In Al-Furu', Ibn Muflih attributed to Imam Ahmad that he said, one will not be sinned for abandoning a person who is persistent on a sin until he leaves it. And he stated that abandoning such friendship is one of the ways of doing inkar of the munkar. Some of the Salaf considered shayateen al-ins, the shayateen of the ins, worse than the shayateen of the jinn. Because shaitan of the jinn, you can seek refuge in Allah from him and he will leave. Shaitan al-ins will stay at one until he gets him to fall in the sin. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali in Lata'if al-Ma'arif said, in meaning, that sins are ominous and one may not be safe from the punishment of Allah befalling him while he sits with sinners. And that's why one should distance himself from them. In Jami' al-Masail, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said, abandoning is legislated. It's part of our religion. And he mentioned some verses on it from the Quran, like the verse, وَهْجُرُهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا, and وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا, and the verse وَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ. And he said, and like that is how the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ordered to abandon 3 of the Sahaba who stayed back in from the battle of Tabuk, and how Umar radiallahu an dealt with Sabigh ibn Isl or Sabigh ibn Usayl. There's a discrepancy in his name. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said that's for 2 reasons. Abandon them so he will not see their evil or hear it and become a partner in it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah An-Nisa, إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ. And also, he said, as a punishment for them. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala in Mukhtasar al-Fatawa al-Masriya said, one may not even sit with a sinner unless it's a darura. And he mentioned the story that was presented to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah ta'ala when a group of people were taken to him for drinking alcohol, and he ordered that they be lashed. They told him that one of the people that was among the group was fasting. He said, start with him. He ruled that one who witnesses the munkar is like the one who does it. That's taken from the verse of Allah, إِنَّكُمْ إِذًا مِثْلُهُمْ. Al-Haytami, in his book on major sins, mentioned the major sin number 442 as being sitting with the Fasiq. And he said, some said there's no difference between sitting with them and befriending them while they're doing their fisq, or if they're not doing it. And he said in summary and in meaning, he said, one sitting with them gradually becomes amused and entertained by them, and he begins to lean towards their actions by necessity. And he said, sitting with them over time will cause one to be inclined to them and to like them and to imitate them. In Jami' al-Masail, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned that sometimes one is forced into mu'ashara, into what's similar to befriending. And he said that may be exempted unless it's going to affect his mind or his deen. What he means, example like this is like the parents. Some may have parents who fall into major sins or into bid'ah, like alcohol, for example, wal-'iyadhu billah, or some may fall into rituals of shirk. So there's a forced bond there. There's a forced friendship there because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But what Ibn Taymiyyah is saying is that if there's a forced bond and it may affect one's religion, then one should abandon them. And they should abandon them in such relationships to the extent that they preserve their deen. And just as one should distance himself from fusaq and kuffar and mubtadi'ah, one should draw himself near to those that he sees are righteous and remind him of the akhirah. Sitting with them, spending time with them, taking their advice, giving them advice. Even nations before us knew and held on to this rule. In the famous story of the man from Bani Israel who killed 100 people, when he asked the alim, when he asked the knowledgeable person, the alim, the knowledgeable person told him, go to such and such land. There you will find devoted ubbad, devoted people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Join them in their worship and don't come back to your land because it's an evil place. He wanted him to go to an area where he has righteous surroundings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala said such a beautiful statement commenting on this verse. He said, this is proof on abandoning the people of kufr and sins like the people of bid'ah and their likes. In meaning, I'm giving it to you in meaning, because their friendship is kufr or a sin. Their friendship only comes from mawaddah. This is such an important statement. Friendship, prolonged friendship, unless it's for darura or ikrah or inkar of the munkar, that friendship negates or puts a deficiency in one's wala and bara by having mawaddah for them. He said, إِذِ الصُّحْبَ لَا تَكُونْ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوَدَّةٍ. Friendship only stems from mawaddah. And as to befriending the mubtadi'ah, they generally speaking have a worse effect on an individual and on manipulating an individual more than the other two categories that we've been mentioning. That's befriending them or even merely sitting with them for moments. So imagine those who recommend them and take from them. Even if they may have at times some haqq, they still should be shunned. And one shouldn't claim to be on the path of the muwahideen while he may listen or recommend or direct others to books or speakers of the murji'ah, for example. And you need to go no further than الشريعة للآجري or أصول اعتقاد أهل السنة للالكائي to read the strong stance the Salaf had in their relationship to the mubtadi'ah. Al-Hasan al-Basri said, don't sit with the people of desires, don't debate them, and don't listen to them. Abu Qulab rahimahullah said, don't sit with the people of desires because they may dip you in their desires, they may dip you in their falsehood, or taint you. Muhammad ibn Sirin wouldn't let two of the mubtadi'ah sit with him to recite a hadith to him. They just wanted to recite a hadith to him. And when he refused, they said, okay, let us recite a verse from the Quran to you. He wouldn't let them even do that. Fudayl ibn Iyad said, don't sit with the people of bid'ah because I fear the curse of Allah might befall upon you. Al-Imam Abdul Razzaq al-San'ani was met by a Mu'tazili, and the Imam didn't refuse to speak to him. And the man, in summary, wanted to speak to him for a moment, and the Imam wouldn't let him. He said, because my heart is weak and religion is not a game for the winner. It's not, you don't go by, it's not like a wrestling match. You go by who wins. And if these Imams feared over their deen, what do we say today? Muhammad ibn Nadr al-Harithi and al-Dhahabi said, Whoever listens, they were very similar, the statements they said. Whoever listens to a person of bid'ah, knowing what he's saying, will render them free from the guardianship and protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they will be on their own. The hearts are weak, and the shubha and doubts may sweep one off their feet at times. Ibn Rajab and al-Dhahabi said, pertaining to Ibn Aqil al-Hanbali, they said he used to go to the Mu'tazila and learn from them or sit with them. And they warned him not to go until he ended up falling in their trap and he became affected by some of their deviance and some of the qualities and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari and Muslim, إنما مثل الجليس الصالح والجليس السوء كحامل المسك ونافخ الكير فحامل المسك إما أن يحذيك وإما أن تبتاع منه وإما أن تجد منه ريحا طيبة ونافخ الكير إما أن يحرق ثيابك وإما أن تجد ريحا خبيثة. The Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم gave the example of a good friend and an evil one. And he said the good friend is like one who carries the musk. The evil one is like the one who blows in a pair of bellows. The one who carries a musk, what do you get out of him? He either gifts you perfume or you buy some perfume from him. The least of it is that you'll get a good smell from him. The evil friend is like the one who blows in a pair of bellows, and he'll either burn your clothes or the least of it, you get a bad smell from him. The summary of the hadith is that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling you good friends will affect you positively and evil friends will affect you negatively. If one who befriends Fasiq doesn't follow in their footsteps, then over time it will diminish the magnitude of the sin in his eyes. Ibn al-Jawzi and Sayyid al-Khatir said, I've seen nothing more harmful to a believer than mingling with those who are not good. Their nature is absorbing. It steals you. What he means is it'll swipe you off your feet. They will absorb you in their evil without you perceiving it. And if one doesn't start acting like them, Ibn al-Jawzi said, the least of it is with having such friendship, it will stall one from doing good. With friendship of the righteous, you will add purity to your heart. And if there is no righteous people in your area, then your purity will come from your seclusion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A pure muwahhid or muwahhida shouldn't take their precious moments with a kafir or a fasiq or a modernist or a murji, alleging that they need to socialize. In the prison interview with Sheikh Walid al-Sinani, Fakkallahu Asra, he said he loved his seclusion. Most who don't know about prison, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save you all from it, when you're in a cell 24 hours a day and they tell you get ready, you have a few moments to get ready, you're going to the medical clinic or you're going to recreation, you love to go. Even though you're in shackles and cuffs, you love to go. You love to go to change the scenery, even though it's going from gray cemented walls to another set of gray cemented walls. Sheikh Walid al-Sinani said he loved his seclusion. When the interviewer asked him if he was forced, he said he didn't want to be in the interview. He didn't want to leave his cell. He'd rather be in his cell. And he, for those who don't know, Sheikh Walid chose solitary over the general population. He didn't want to be in general population. And many fight and struggle to be removed from segregation so they can be in general population. What was more astonishing for me in that interview is when he told the interviewer, when they call me out for meetings, like what he meant is for something similar to the interview that he was going through, or when they call him out for questioning, or what they have in prison as called al-munasaha. He said, when I return to my cell, I remain distraught and unwell for days. Do you know why? He's so pure. He's pure in his seclusion. Simple words or the mere sight of those munafiqeen he sees disrupt that purity. The purity he attained in his seclusion. and he needs days to recover from what tainted him. If you can't find friends, stick to seclusion. Or befriend those who died by living and reading their seerah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu attaqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. A command from Allah for the believers to fear Allah and to be with who? With those who are truthful. When the mushrikeen approached Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to befriend him, so long as he's not around people like Bilal and Ammar and Suhaib and Khabbab and Ibn Mas'ud, the weak and unfortunate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَا تَطْرُدِ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. Then he ordered him to befriend those like Bilal and Ammar. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا. It's people like Bilal and Ammar to befriend, not those like Abu Jahl. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses deterred from befriending those who are evil. فأعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا وإذا رأيت الذين يخوضون في آياتنا فأعرض عنهم وقد نزل عليكم في الكتاب أن إذا سمعتم آيات الله يكفر بها ويستهزأ بها فلا تقعدوا معهم. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ordered to befriend those who are righteous, and sometimes they asked for it. Musa alayhi salam says, وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِّنْ أَهْلِي. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make his brother as his companion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, سَنَشُدُّ عَضُدَكَ بِأَخِيكَ. We mentioned that in the fiqh class. And then what did Musa alayhi salam say? قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ إِلَّا نَفْسِي وَأَخِي فَافْرُقْ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Separate us, part us from the people who are fasiqeen. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, I will leave you, I will withdraw from you, I will distance myself from you. وَأَعْتَزِلُكُمْ وَمَا تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And then what did he say? وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَى رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينِ. I'm going to my Lord. When he sought seclusion from the bad companionship, Allah granted him with a blessing. The blessing of Ishaq and Yaqub, and both of them were prophets. فَلَمَّا اعْتَزَلَهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ وَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ وَكُلًّا جَعَلْنَا نَبِيًّا. Your sacrifice to Allah will not go unrewarded in dunya and akhirah. He secluded himself from bad companionship. Allah blessed him with Ishaq and Yaqub, and both were prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran honored the dog for befriending muwahhideen. وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ وَنُقَلِّبُهُمْ ذَاتَ الْيَمِينِ وَذَاتَ الشِّمَالِ وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. Ibn Kathir and Al-Qurtubi in different statements mentioned how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored a dog by mentioning him in the Quran because of his companionship to the muwahhideen. Al-Qurtubi said, if that's for a dog, then imagine a Muslim who strives to befriend the awliya of Allah. You can never say the continued, prolonged, constant befriending of a fasiq or mubtada or kafir will not affect you when messengers alayhimus salam distance themselves from such people. Just like water and air get tainted from a carcass or corpse, a righteous person gets tainted by the companionship of fusaq and mubtadi'ah and kuffar. Their traits, their beliefs, their ways, their manners are contagious. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
يا فارس القدس هيا تعجل وشمر عن الزند حرا أبيا لساح المنايا صراعا ترجل وقارع بصدرك ريحا عتيا تناديك أحجار قصى الطهارى فلبي النداء بكرة وعشيا.